ain't no storm. From rays close to new stars rising. The playbook's open, it's so mesmerizing. Enter the playbook. Patriots Playbook. Here's your host, John Rook. Legend. Voice of the New England Patriots. First down. It's Patriots Playbook. La la la.
You're on. I just had muted.
Nothing. Oh, okay. Well, we can't hear a thing. I just want you to know that. So that's, should we do sign language maybe? I don't know.
Well, I can hear you. We just aren't going to be able to hear the callers. That's the problem.
That could be an issue. All right. Well, hey, that's the way it works. Can't even hear myself right now, to be honest with you.
No.
Matt, so,
but if they can hear us, then I can hear.
I can hear him just because he's resonating.
Yeah.
Through the headphones. So that's okay. I've actually done it with the tin can and the phone line string. Done it before
I
like
believe that.
We could do that. We could do it that way too. And plus, we were sort of distracted, so it's not Matt's fault because we were actually talking about Chinese food.
Yes,
where we got started here today, only because you made your first ever trip to San Francisco this past weekend.
I did. It was a lot of fun. I mean, obviously, we wish the game went a little bit better, but frankly, I think all of us were prepared for the fact that the game wasn't going to go particularly well, given the matchup. So I wasn't totally shocked. I don't think any of us were by the results of the game, but we had a good day in San Francisco on Saturday. Got a day off there, which was really nice, and I'd never been to San Fran, so it was cool to tour around the city a little bit.
Okay. What'd you eat?
We ate some great Mexican food on the first night. Really good. And then
Wait, you go to San Francisco and you're eating Mexican food?
It's it's that part of the country a little bit.
I think San Francisco's kind of known for its Chinese food.
I know.
Okay, all right.
You're right. I'm not even going to try and defend us. You're
it's
right.
okay because Mexican food is my favorute.
Yeah,
on the
too.
planet.
I
but
love
Chinese,
Mexican food a lot.
I have to admit, it's a close second. And believe me, those of you who know that, how long I've lived here, and I'm a frequenter of Federal Hill in Providence and the North End in Boston, all these great places with unbelievable Italian, and it is magnificent. But if I really had to, hold my feet to the fire, it's Mexican, it's Chinese, and Italian is a close third, but it's still third.
Yeah, I'm a big Mexican food fan myself. I got enchiladas with the mole sauce.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was really good.
Ooh,
it was really
nice.
good. It was good. And then the second night, when in Rome, we went to In-N-Out, of course,
right.
and got In-N-Out for dinner, which
Double animal
great.
style.
Double, some fries, well done.
All right.
I don't do the shake. So
You don't do the shake? No, that's
No,
all right. I'm okay with
I do
that.
soda.
But as long as you're getting the double, you're all set.
Yeah.
At In-N-Out. That's
Yeah.
perfectly. I actually have been a Fall River, what is known as a oh my God, now I'm going to forget it. It's the Chinese noodles sandwich.
Oh,
It's unbelievable.
I didn't know that existed.
It's unbelievul.
Okay,
And it's
cool.
sort of a Fall River thing, but
Okay.
I'm just really kind of gotten into it over the last couple of months, and of course the place that Miss Robin and I go to, it's closing on New Year's Eve.
Oh.
They're retiring and getting out of business.
Oh, like officially? I thought you just meant it was going to be closed on New Year's Eve.
The restaurant's called Mi Sum.
Oh, okay.
And it's delicious.
Yeah, we have a good. We were just talking off the air, and everybody's like, "This isn't a food podcast, is it?" But we love talking about food here.
Okay, what's the alternative? We can talk about the ambulances.
No.
We can talk about the ambulances that are pulling up outside. No, we're just kidding
Yeah.
on the ambulances, all right? But
Yeah.
we can talk about that too, which we will. But
Yeah.
I figure, the young man makes his first visit to California to San Francisco, I should say
Yeah.
more specifically.
Yeah.
And I have to find out what kind of Chinese food he ate.
Yeah, I was a SoCal guy for a little while. Lived out in Los Angeles in my younger years.
So when you were out there, though, you never made the trip up to NoCal?
I never did. It just wasn't something. We were San Diego a lot. We went to Vegas a couple times, obviously. Joshua Tree.
Yeah.
No trips up. So didn't get a chance to go up there when I was out there. So this is my first time.
Okay. Well, here's the routine for today. First of all, Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots, Toyota. Let's go places. And let's welcome back visit ma.com. Massachusetts is made for everyone, for leaf peepers, corn maze strollers, regatta lovers, and any other you can think of. Come to where there's something for everyone this fall. That's Massachusetts, where everything is made possible. Plan your trip at visitma.com. Maybe everything possible with the exception of winning at Gillette Stadium.
Oh.
But that's close.
Oh, no.
I know. I had to do it. So let's bring you up to date on everything as best as we can, because it seems to sort of be unfolding as we speak. I know you were in the locker room all morning long, and listening to Gerard and Jacoby and the things that they were doing today. The major news of the day, let's start with the big story, at least for me, is David Andrews deciding for surgery, which is going to put him out for the rest of the year. He's going to hit IR. It hasn't officially happened yet, but we do expect that to happen, right?
Yes, we do, and he wasn't at practice today, as you might expect, and they closed the locker room just when he walked in, so I didn't get to speak with him, but I did see him towards the very end of open locker room come into the Patriots locker room, obviously not dressed for practice, but it's disappointing, and you won't find a bigger fan of David Andrews than me. Just a consummate pros pro, great personality, great leader. Gritty as hell, just tough as nails type player. With all that being said, I have noticed over the last year or two a little bit of a drop off in his game, and I say it like I'm about to cry, because I hate saying that about the guy. I really do hate saying that about a guy.
I think everybody really appreciates his professionalism. And he's been he calls all the line changes and plays, and so here's a guy that has really come up with the guy was a free agent when he first started out here. He was not he was undrafted, and he worked his way up the ladder to where he's become certainly one of the more respected linemen, if not centers, in the entire league, certainly in the AFC East and the AFC. And to have him have these problems, he had the blood clot issue, which has hurt Christian Barmore this year, and be able to come back from that, and now to have this happen, and especially at a time when the Patriots' offensive line is, not only a group of walking wounded, but they're not functioning as a unit together. They're not doing what they need to do. And may even be delaying the development of their star quarterback, which we'll, I'm sure, get into a little bit. But fact of the matter is that Andrews is valuable, and I was happy to see a couple of the reporters in the media tweet out earlier today that his expectation is to return for 2025.
Yeah. I wonder, because mentally he's always so locked in that a lot of the things that you see on film with him in terms of his play the last few years, when you talk about some decline, are obviously physical decline. And with a player like David, I do wonder a little bit if his body is starting to
give in on him
just a little bit.
Or give out on him, whichever way you want to look at it.
Just because of some of the things you're seeing physically, you probably wouldn't have seen with him a couple years ago, and now injuries and things like that are starting to pop up. He was on the injury report. I don't know if it was last week or the week before for something totally different than what he's gonna miss the season for, but he was already starting to get some bumps and bruises. I think it was before the Jets game that he was. It wasn't 100% that he was gonna play in that game. So a really tough loss for the locker room, for the leadership, for all that sort of stuff with the Patriots. Obviously a big loss in terms of communication, as you were talking about. I do wonder, though, and I say this lightly because I don't want to disrespect David, but I do wonder if Nick Leverett, as a blocker, is going to be really that big of a drop-off, especially what we saw from Leverett on Sunday, if that's how he's going to play.
He actually, I thought, was representative of the position.
Yeah.
There were no egregious errors there that I saw.
No, it seems like he's cleaned up the snaps a little bit from the preseason. Obviously, more reps will help you with that.
Yeah.
I'm sure during the week in practice that Andrews was being managed in terms of reps too. So a lot of those reps in practice with the ones might have gone to Nick Leverett just to keep David Andrews fresh for the game. So I look at Leverett from the film on Sunday against San Francisco and say 1-for-1 as a blocker. I don't know if there's necessarily going to be this major drop off now from a leadership, toughness, grit standpoint. There's only one David Andrews, so that's going to be difficult.
Yeah. All right. So while the David Andrews situation is playing out, we expect the IR designation, to come, in fairly short order. The question now remains: okay, who's left? Who's next? Next man up.
Yeah.
Is there a next man up? I mean, I think all of those are legitimate questions at this stage of the game, especially when we know that on the offensive side of the ball, the focus, I mean, sure, there's a lot of focus on Jacoby and the running backs and the wide receivers, but it all is predicated on what happens up front in the trenches. We've talked about this on and off all season long.
We
thus
try.
far.
I know nobody wants to talk about the offensive line, but
no, but it really is the key to everything else that's going on with this team on offense, and obviously with all the struggles that this team is having. 31st out of 32 teams in scoring offense. The 32nd team just happens to be the team they're playing this week in the Miami Dolphins, and we'll jump into that a little bit. But what do you foresee the immediate future to be like on the line? And, if Nick Leverett has to take over at center, I would ask you, is there, what's up with Cole Strange? Is it a possibility that he could return at some point? Is there? I know that they brought in a free agent today for a workout, and maybe you can bring us up to date on that one. And I guess really, are they? I know Jacoby has said, not Jacoby, Gerard has said. That they're not necessarily in the market for a free agent tackle, but might that have to be revisited just in sheer numbers?
Yeah.
Because they just don't have any.
Well, it sounds like they're not in the market for any of the tackles that are going to cost some real money. David Bakhtiari, Charles Leno, DJ Humphreys, those guys that are out there. There's one more, Donovan Smith is the other one.
Yeah.
I don't think they're in the market for those level of tackles. They're going to
have to pay too much, Evan? Is that, they'd have to give
I
up
don't,
too much?
I
mean,
can't
why?
give you a good reason.
These guys aren't playing right now, so I'm not sure what's the...
I can't give you a good reason. The only out that I can give the team that isn't money related, because I can't believe that it's the money, the only out that I can give the team is that there has to be some sort of injuries with those guys. Some of them we know of their injuries. Others, maybe they're tapped, in terms of being older and that kind of thing, that the rest of the league knows about that the outside world doesn't. Because let's face it, if any of those guys were healthy and ready to go, then there's plenty of tackle-needy teams that would take David Bakhtiari on their team right now.
See, that's kind of what I thought.
Right.
So if these guys are still available, and here we are in Week 5, there's something else going on.
Yeah. My guess is that a lot of those guys, and like I said, some of it is public. Humphreys is coming off an injury. Leno had off-season surgery. Bakhtiari hasn't played a full season in years and has been contemplating retirement, different things like that. So some of those guys have issues. Donovan Smith is, for all we know, healthy, but struggled a lot with the Chiefs last year, and his film with the Kansas City was not good. So all those guys have flaws. I get the Patriots guys have flaws too. I'm not trying to excuse the team for where they're at on the offensive line, but that's where it's at. I think the one other thing I would just mention, in-house, the line that we saw out at practice today, they really have done a major shakeup if this is what they're going to roll with. Like, this line got put into an absolute blender by the coaching staff. The line that we saw, and we did this on PU, and everybody got very confused. So I'm going to try to do this as
got another shot at it here.
Straightforward as possible.
Right.
Left tackle Vidarian Lowe. Left guard Michael Jordan. Center
Nick Leverett
was Brian Hudson, who was on the practice squad. But I don't look at that and say that Nick Leverett's not going to be the center. Maybe he's banged up also.
Well,
he
was
know about that.
Allegedly banged up a week ago,
so
right? Yeah.
maybe. Right guard City So. right tackle Mike Onwenu. So that right side is what they had last year on the right side for the majority of the season. Get Jordan and Lowe back healthy on the left side. They probably feel like those have been their two best guys on the left side so far this year. Then obviously you're going to have Leverett most likely at center. But as dire as that still sounds, I can see the method there of these 5 guys have been at those specific positions are our best 5 guys right now. The one odd man out really is Layden Robinson, the rookie who goes to the bench after having a tough game last week. So,
but they can't afford not to play him. He's got to figure in that mix somewhere because their depth is incredibly thin.
Well, on the interior, they have some depth. They have Jordan. They obviously could play Onwenu on the inside if they had the option to do that. So it's really tackle that depth is a major concern. But it's a concern. The whole line has been a concern all year long, regardless of what combination you put out there. It's the worst part of the team. There's no doubt about it.
Can you update Strange's status?
Strange is going to be out indefinitely. He got injured late in the year last year.
Wasn't he eligible to come back this week?
Technically, but
he has not.
He is not close. He is not close. He has a torn patellar tendon, which is a really difficult injury.
Yep.
At this point, with all the science that's gone behind fixing ACLs, it's probably the worst injury that you can have in your knee. So he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. He's not a part of this right now.
So we really shouldn't expect him at any point.
I would say I wouldn't rule out the season entirely, but I am not expecting to see him anytime soon.
Okay, so that's the latest, at least, on the offensive line and what this team might do about it. The other, major story that, certainly would have some New England interest, at least that I saw today, was Devonte Adams, being, cut loose or, potentially traded by the Raiders to someplace. There's a betting website that emailed me to tell me that the Patriots are the 5th team in terms of favorites to land Devonte Adams. I don't see that that's going to happen, although I guess stranger things have happened. But I would say at this stage of the game, why the hell not? I mean, if you don't have to give up anything of any, great importance or note, like if you could get away with a third or I don't know. It might take a second to get him, but certainly if you could, use a 3rd-round draft pick on him, depending on the rest of the compensation, why wouldn't you take a shot at him?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. The way I look at them trading for Devonte Adams is that would be solely a way for Elliott Wolf to put the fans at bay a little bit. It's a knee-jerk trade to me.
But they don't care about that.
They shouldn't. They shouldn't. But if you're doing something to get some interest, pique some interest back in the team, and get some fans excited about what you've done.
So wait a second. Hold on. So they're throwing out. They're trying to get the play Drake Maye people off their backs.
Or just the people in general that we have call in and email in, and myself included. We're all frustrated with the results on the field. That's how I would view acquiring Devonte Adams. Devonte Adams is going to be 32 years old. Mm-hmm. People got to realize that he's actually almost exactly the same age as myself. So I know he's gonna be 32 years old. Both born in December of '92. How about that? So he is not necessarily a part of your future plans. Whereas that draft pick compensation that you're giving to the Raiders for Devonte Adams is a part of your future plans. So this is a move that is for the here and now for a roster that's not here and now ready. So that's the part of it that I wouldn't really understand. The other part of it is that he's already pissed off being in Vegas because they stink. So now he's going to be less pissed off about being
coming
here.
to New England, yeah.
So
right.
It just doesn't really seem like it would make any sense for both sides for him to come here. I get it's a shiny new toy. It's a name. It's a known commodity. They need receiver help. They need offensive firepower. I get there are some pros to the move, but you have to understand that that's a win now move for a team that is not winning now, even with Devonte Adams on the roster. So all that would be doing would be you and I can go buy his jersey at the pro shop.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, it's my understanding as well that he most likely wants to play with a quarterback he has some familiarity with as well. That's what I saw, at least.
Yeah,
out on the
I would
X-ray today.
assume that interested parties at the top of the list have to be the Jets. You know, pair him again with Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
Outside of Garrett Wilson, even though Alan Lazard and Mike Williams looked like dogs against the Patriots, they're not necessarily that in the grand scheme of things. So pairing him with Garrett Wilson would obviously give them another weapon that's a legitimate factor. That would be a problem. So the Jets make a lot of sense just to put him back with Rodgers. I've heard, other teams that have been floated, Steelers a little bit, they're always poking around. They were poking around on Brandon Ayuk when that whole thing was going around. So they're clearly in the market for a number one receiver also. They're, in a much better position than the Patriots. So the only reason why a realistic point of view, the only reason why I see this even being a possibility for the Patriots is because Elliott Wolf has gone big game hunting at this position multiple times already. Chased Calvin Ridley, chased Brandon Ayuk. So that this would jive with their approach in that respect, but I don't believe that they're in a position to give up any sort of real draft comp. Like if they're giving up a top 100 pick right now for Devonte Adams, I would view that as a mistake.
Would bringing in Devonte Adams make Jacoby Brissett a better quarterback?
I think bringing in a player of Devonte Adams' caliber makes anybody a better quarterback in theory, but their issues with Jacoby Brissett are systemic that go beyond just the fact that they don't have receivers that can separate. You already have two young receivers in Demario Douglas and Jalen Polk who have created some opportunities and just aren't really getting the football.
Right.
So I don't think that their issues with Jacoby Brissett, the way that I see it, and why I have been number one on the bandwagon to play May, the play May bandwagon, is that right now it's a bad combination between quarterback, play caller, and offensive line. This mix of those three things doesn't work. It doesn't work together because you have probably the worst pass blocking offensive line in football. You have a quarterback that's not a fast processor or an athlete at the position. So you have a guy that's going to hold the ball back there, and you have a bad offensive line, and you have a play caller who wants to run a certain kind of offense but doesn't really have the personnel to execute that kind of offense. So that's why I really truly believe it would be better with Drake, because Drake Maye is a playmaker at the position. So on third down, we saw it in a little glimpse in the Jets game. There were fourth downs, but we saw it. He can pick up a third down with his legs. He can make a throw over the middle of the field to Pop Douglas on third down to move the chains.
What little separation we're seeing from the receivers, he can hit that pass.
Yeah, he can make that.
We saw that in the summertime.
He threw that ball to Pop Douglas with a little, what I would call anticipation, where Douglas is on the right-hand side of the linebacker. He sees the window form to hit him on the other side, and so he leads Douglas coming across the field. I just don't see Jacoby Brissett doing those kinds of things with regularity, seeing windows, throwing the ball with anticipation, throwing the ball into NFL open targets, not wide open, but NFL open. And there's a difference between those things. What I see with Brissett is holding the ball, waiting for people to come wide open and uncover so that he can see, okay, this guy's open.
Does he do that, though, because he requires that, or because he's being told to do that?
Probably a combination, because I do think that there's an element of don't turn the ball over, don't turn the ball over, don't turn the ball over. And if
he's playing conservatively,
right,
but it's not getting anybody anywhere. They're spinning their wheels.
Right. So if he throws an anticipatory throw over the middle of the field and Jalen Polk breaks out instead of breaking in, then now we have an interception on our hands, and that's a problem for this team. But the problem that they have now is that these guys are coming NFL open again. I don't want, we're seeing a lot of the receivers are creating separation. They're getting open. They're not getting the ball. I agree with a lot of that, but I don't want to conflate that with this is Tyreek Hill running through the defense and he's 10 yards behind everybody wide open. There's two different things, right? Like there's wide open and there's NFL open. What I'm seeing on film is that there's receivers that are NFL open that the quarterback isn't finding. but that doesn't mean that it's easy, right? Like, that doesn't mean that these are easy
You've got to have a
throws.
quarterback that on occasion has to thread a needle.
Yeah.
The pass to Jalen Polk this last week, the one that was ultimately ruled out of bounds, which looked like it was an unbelievable catch, right?
Yeah.
That was threading a needle.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of pass, though, that you need to expect him to be able to make almost regular, once, twice a game at least.
Right.
And
yeah,
we don't see it.
Yeah, I would look at the back shoulder throw to Jalen Polk, too, as another example, because Polk, as a receiver, is one of those guys where you just need to put the ball on him. Like, if he's running a vertical route, you don't want to lead Jalen Polk down the field and throw it to a spot down the field because he doesn't have great pull-away speed. So if you're playing with, just because they're playing Miami, he's top of mind. If you're playing with Tyreek Hill and he's even with the defensive back, he's leaving, right? If he's even with the defensive back, you just throw it as far as you can. Mm-hmm. And just let him run underneath it because he's probably going to outrun the defensive back to the football. Mm-hmm. With a guy like Jalen Polk, you want to put it on him. Like, you want to throw it to him to a spot. Throw it low, throw back shoulder, high point it. Something along those lines because he's got great hands and body control. So he can go and he can snag those passes.
And do something with it after he catches
right.
it.
So he makes that back shoulder catch. That's a throw that I think should be a regular part of this Patriots offense moving forward because that's the type of receiver that he is, but it takes a quarterback that's willing to throw that ball with some trust to execute that kind of play.
All right, so this kind of directly leads us into what the next topic was because we've been doing it now for 4 weeks, now going on 5. Drake Maye.
Yeah.
I started the hashtag and I've seen it appear a little bit. Play the Drake. and in all honesty, I understand both sides of the story.
Yeah.
I've long been an advocate for playing him. I think you've kind of been on that side of the fence most of the time, all the way as well. I've hesitated the last few weeks only because we see what's happening in front of us with the offensive line.
Right.
And then on top of that, let's add, Ramondre Stevens' somewhat inexplicable fumble problems. And I hope for his sake as well as the sake of everybody else, he finds a little pine time this week.
Yeah.
Because that just can't continue. They are too dependent on that position and what he's doing for that to continue to happen. So be that as it may, pun intended, can we even legitimately think about putting Drake Maye in the game? And I'm at the point now where how much worse could it possibly be? We're now getting 5 weeks into the season. You are playing a team that is struggling mightily scoring the ball just like you are. So this may be a battle of attrition more than anything else on Sunday. But yet you're at home and you really should win this game. I mean, I'm thinking, I know they're a slight favorite, which is shocking me, to be honest with you, considering the way that Miami basically manhandled them a year ago. But at the same time, this is an opportunity to make a lot of ills go away and to put some needed confidence behind a bunch of guys that we didn't think would be playing at this stage of the game, and that even includes Jacoby. So when does he play? If he plays, I see time and the clock ticking away on him developing game sense in a cheap part of his contract that they control.
Yeah.
That bothers me if he redshirts this year and they basically wasted an entire year on a manageable contract. That bothers me. I think that's like dumb.
Yeah. So let's unpack it from both angles because I do think that there is the angle I don't agree with necessarily, but I can see the logic, is that if you put him behind this offensive line and he gets his butt kicked like Jacoby Brissett is, it's going to have long-term effects on his internal clock and that sort of thing, his sense in the pocket. You don't want this to turn into a shell shock situation where he looks like Mac Jones did last year.
Right, but in my instance, he's worth the number 3 pick of the draft. You have to think that a guy that's taken that highly and a guy that's supposedly your next quote-unquote quarterback savior can overcome that because of his ability.
Right.
And we've seen flashes of that in the little that we've seen him in this year. So I'm like, let's roll the dice on this thing.
Yeah, so the other side of it, which is the side that I've been on basically the entire time since we saw him go on that climb in preseason and in training camp where he was getting better and better and better. The way that I look at it is that in the here and now, there's no doubt about it that his playmaking ability and his physical talent would give you a better chance to win than Jacoby Brissett. I'll just say this point blank. It bothers me when Gerard Mayo and Alex Van Pelt tell us that Jacoby Brissett gives them the best chance to win football games.
That's not true. It's just not true.
It's not true. So stop saying it. If you want to say that he's the best option for this team right now,
that's fair.
That's fine. I see it's this bucket, right? It's the other side. It's we don't want to subject Drake to this type of beating. I understand that side of it. Don't lie to me and tell me that he's not better than Jacoby Brissett, because I know that's not true. I've seen them both play. I've seen them both play in NFL practice, in preseason games. I've seen them play against NFL competition. I've seen Drake play in college. The other thing that I think is important with Drake Maye, with that, not just the physical tools, I think people need to understand the intangibles of the player as well, and the support system that he has around him. This is something that drew the Patriots to him and drew a lot of teams to him. He comes from a family of all athletes. Yeah, he's the youngest of all of his siblings. His older brother is a North Carolina basketball hero. Mm-hmm. His father played football for North Carolina, quarterback at UNC. His other brother won a national championship with the Florida Gators in baseball. This is a family of athletes that is extremely tight-knit. And I find it really hard to believe that they are going to let him fail like that. Maybe he just doesn't have it, right? Like, I don't think that's going to be the case, but he might fail just because guys fail. That happens. I don't think that he's going to fail because of a lack of confidence or a lack of, physical intent or mental stuff, intangibles. I really believe a lot in him. I have from before the day they drafted him, going to his pro day, talking to some of those coaches down there at North Carolina, talking to some of the quarterback coaches that he's worked with in the past. Clyde Christensen, who's worked with Manning and Luck and Brady and all these other great quarterbacks. He is a special, special kid. And at some point, they are going to have to figure out that they need to put him in the game, not only because of his individual development, but my bigger concern right now is becoming the entire team. There's 52 other players in the locker room that are all trying to win football games right now. Mm-hmm. And there's receivers that are frustrated. There's offensive linemen that are getting beat up in the media and beat up on the field. At some point in time, and we saw this a little bit over the last week with guys calling out each other publicly and things like that, at some point in time, you are going to start to lose this locker room. And if that's the case, then Drake is the one that needs to fix it. Okay. So that's my concern at this point, is more about the whole thing. How does Gerard Mayo get buy-in? How do the players in the locker room respond to all this losing? It's a big problem to me that everybody else is being stunted and they're not playing the best quarterback. That's going to run its course with this locker room at some point.
Now that I can hear you. Did anybody see Matt, the little mole running around back here in the underneath the table?
I think
trying
we
to
did a
fix
good job
things?
of not being too distracted.
No kidding, right? I know.
Just saying.
Fortunately, it worked. And we haven't even touched on the defense at all, which I'm even sure that it's, needed to do at this stage of the game. But nevertheless, I would say that we could probably sufficiently just kind of surmise by saying they're not getting enough pressure on the quarterback, and when they are rushing, they're not staying very disciplined in what they're trying to do. Yeah. And, we saw Brock Purdy just eat them up this last week.
So I'll try to keep it quick because I know you have Alan on, but I think the biggest thing to me with their defense is third down. Right now they're 31st in the league in third down defense, second to last.
Yeah.
They're allowing a conversion on third down over 50% of the time. It just hasn't been good enough. I disagree slightly with the notion that they're not getting pressure on the quarterback. I don't think they're getting good pressure on the quarterback. It's not that they're not logging pressure on the quarterback. They're just not getting the productive kind of pressure because they're being undisciplined and they're rushing up the field and they're letting quarterbacks out of the pocket.
Right.
Gerard Mayo said something this morning that I really agree with. That's exactly how I see it on the film. Their coverage has actually been pretty good on third down. They've been in good position coverage wise. But they're allowing quarterbacks to get outside the pocket and extend plays, and you can't expect those guys to cover for that long.
Yeah, I mean, we had, this last week, he had almost, 4 seconds?
Yeah.
I think to throw the ball.
Right.
That's an eternity.
Because he's moving around.
Right.
Right.
But they weren't staying disciplined in their lanes, and so that's why they were overshooting him. And he just steps up in it, pulls his best Tom Brady, finds the spot, and sets and fires, and they got eaten up by it.
Yeah, they're getting eaten up by quarterbacks extending plays. So they actually track this nowadays. So with extended plays is anything over 4 seconds time to throw. The Patriots right now in EPA, expected points added, are giving up the second most EPA in the league on extended plays. So they're probably the worst defense in the league at this point. So when you look at all of that, what's happening is no matter how good Christian Gonzalez and Jonathan Jones and Marcus Jones and all those guys are in coverage, when you let the quarterback run around back there for 4.5 seconds, you're going to have a lot of problems. So if they can clean up the pass rush, and next week if this continues and we have some more time, I can tell you about some of the things I've been hearing about this because they're asking their edge guys to do some different things than Bill would have asked them to do. And some of those guys are adjusting and some of those guys are not. And that's, I think, been a big part of this, is that it's not wholesale changes to the scheme defensively, but it's different enough that some guys are going through it in terms of this transition.
Is that part of what Devon Godshaw told WEEI here this week, that some guys are playing a little selfishly?
Yeah, some of the guys, I bounced around the locker room today and asked some of the guys that are playing out on the edge what's going on. And those guys don't feel like that's it. They understand why that is coming out, because guys like in the middle of the field, like Godshaw, are saying, well, I'm doing my job. It's these guys that are not doing their jobs. So the frustration's boiling over.
Gotcha.
And I get that. But what I look at with this defense now, with the edge presences and stuff like that, is that they are being asked to do things a little bit differently than what Bill would have asked them to do.
Okay.
And it's not going well. And so if I'm the coaches, I understand that Alex Van Pelt's been under a lot of fire. Their offense lacks a lot of imagination and just has not been good. I have more problems right now with the defensive coaching than the offensive coaching, because the defense, even with all the injuries and absences, the defense has talent. The defense has talented players that are playing currently for the Patriots. Christian Gonzalez is a really good corner. They have a really good safety tandem when both those guys are healthy. Jelani Tavai has played better football than this in the past. Joshua Uche has played better football than what he's playing right now. Keon White is a good emerging football player. These guys are not Jags. Like, these guys can play ball. They are not being coached well enough on that side of the football.
That's a whole other story, because this team has been out-coached quite a bit, and we knew that was going to happen as well, by the way. It's new coaching staff, rookie coaches in a lot of ways in their positions that they're coaching, very young in their careers, and we knew that this was going to be a learning curve. And when you combine all the other stuff together, I'm not sure what else to say other than, hey, we got a kicker.
And a punter. Yeah.
Amongst the league leaders, right?
There you go.
63-yard field goal.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ed.
No
Appreciate
problem.
you.
I think it's Elaine.
Yes.
By the way, I said Alan.
Yes.
So I apologize.
No, that's all right. Well, we should ask him that.
It's Alan.
Yeah. I think he hung up. Is that because you called him by the wrong name? Okay. Yeah, Alan Pupar from SI.com, covering the Miami Dolphins, was set to join us there momentarily. Unfortunately, looks like we'll have to try to get him back. All right. Don't forget, Bud Light is easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. We thank Evan Lazar for the update. There's so much going on here. I realize it's not the news that you really want to hear. It's not the news that I want to hear. We, want, good things to occur as well, but at the same time, this is what it is. And when, Gerard said earlier today, and we've talked about this on and off for, over a month now, that this is going to be a bumpy ride, that this is going to be, a huge learning curve for this football team in many, many different ways. We were right. We didn't think we were going to be right, especially after that Cincinnati game to open up the year. That certainly I think set everybody off a little bit differently here. But now when you add injury and you add the expected difficulties that you kind of knew were coming, but again, Cincinnati's game just kind of glossed over some of those issues. Well, now you can kind of understand why everything seems to be in such disarray right now. I mean, fact of the matter is, I think the first real truthful thing that I heard Drake Maye say, not that he's lying, he's not lying to anybody, but to me, the one that really resonated today was, hey, we knew when we beat Cincinnati a month ago that was not sustainable. The way that they played that game, it was not sustainable. And by that I mean, running, grinding it out. You had relative health on the offensive line with the exception of Strange. We hadn't seen yet some of the problems that either the receivers or Jacoby Brissett were having, that they knew that we're just not built to sustain that kind of punch them in the mouth, grind it out type of game for very long, and we're seeing it. We're seeing it. All right, Alan Poupart, who covers the Dolphins for SI.com, Sports Illustrated, joins us here in the Playbook. Hey, Alan, thanks for the time today. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Oh, all good. How you guys doing?
Hey, well, we're hanging. It looks like we've got some similar issues going on here, and with two teams that are struggling to, move the football. And so I would ask you, first and foremost, what's the latest on Tua Tagovailoa? Might he come back? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What's being talked about in Miami in terms of a potential reignition of that offense?
Well, what's being talked about is mostly what comes from Mike McDaniel is avoiding talking about timelines.
Yeah.
Wanting no part of speculating about will Tua come back this season, when will he come back this season, focusing strictly on him getting better. We see the reports out there that he's got no concussion symptoms, that he's fully intent on coming back, that the fact that he traveled with his teammates to Seattle in week 3 certainly should be looked at as a good sign. So if you're reading the tea leaves, it does look like he's going to be back. He's eligible to return week 8 when they play the Arizona Cardinals at Hard Rock Stadium. Whether that happens right then and there, who knows?
Yeah.
But I would say that, again, reading the tea leaves, the idea certainly seems to be that he will return at some point this season.
Well, that would be good news, obviously, for Dolphins fans. No question about that, and hopefully good news for him. In the meantime, this is a Dolphins team that, surprisingly is behind the Patriots in scoring offense. How does this team stay afloat long enough until Tua could come back and still give this team an opportunity to be a postseason team like everybody thought it was before the year started?
Well, they got to show, even if it's like a tiny microscopic amount of progress on offense, that would be a start, because right now they're giving their defense not a chance. The defense actually has been playing pretty well, with the exception of giving up seemingly one big play every game, and on Monday night it was that 41-yard run by Tony Pollard. But outside of that, Tennessee had 7 scoring drives. There was 5 field goals and 2 touchdowns, and 6 of the 7 drives were 27 yards or less. So the defense is put behind the 8 ball constantly, and at some point, even if the offense is not putting up anywhere near the kind of numbers they did last year, at the very least, don't make it so difficult for the defense to be able to help you pull out a win. That's step number one. I don't know that you can expect the offense to operate the same way, to the same levels, with Tyler Huntley at quarterback or Skylar Thompson if he returns to the starting lineup once his rib injury heals. But at the very least, they need to be functional. And the problem is that it's bad enough you're playing without your starting quarterback, and then everybody's production, has level of performance, I should say,
sure,
as opposed to production. Level of performance has gone down. Like, the offensive line is struggling worse than ever, and obviously Tua masks some of that because of his ability to get rid of the ball quickly. The run blocking is not there, particularly up the middle, and now we're back to having the short yardage problems that the Dolphins had throughout all of last year, which seemed to be a thing of the past early on. So it's a complete mess right now.
It sounds to me like both teams' defenses could get healthy in a hurry if they have an opportunity to just stop the other team's offense. Which quarterback, in your estimation, gives Miami the best chance to win right now, Thompson or Huntley?
I think Huntley, because of his scrambling ability. He's been an inconsistent passer if you study his history. and that popped up on Monday night a couple of times. There were a couple of opportunities to hit Tyreek Hill. The one that obviously stands out was that bomb, I think it was, I want to say, third quarter when the score had gotten to 16-6, and Tyreek got behind L'Jarius Sneed, and he couldn't hit him.
Yeah.
And that's what you're going to get with Stu Huntley. He's going to make plays with his legs. He did lead the team in rushing with 40 yards, but there are going to be some throws that are there that he's going to miss. Skylar Thompson was kept on this roster since he was a rookie 7th-round pick in 2022. Didn't play a snap last year as a number 3 quarterback, moved up to number 2 this year, and in his first start against Seattle before he got hurt, how can I put this very politely? It was ugly. And it wasn't just that he was missing throws. That wasn't even the issue, is he looked overwhelmed in the pocket. And for a guy who had been in the system for 3 years, to have that kind of performance was massively troubling. And all you can think of at that time is, did the Dolphins really leave themselves with this guy as their number 2 quarterback when they have a starting quarterback whose durability is always going to be a question?
Sure. All right, let's flip it over for a second here. Alan Poupar, who covers the Dolphins for SI.com, joining us here in the Playbook. I kind of looked at some numbers this morning. I'm like, wow, I guess I wasn't aware of it, maybe because of the team's overall 1-3 start like the Patriots, but defense is 6th in the league in total yardage allowed and 1st in third down conversion. And that's like, well, now, so the question I would have is how is this team only winning one game? Is it that bad on offense, or is the defense giving something up that isn't really sort of meeting the obvious eyeball?
No, the only complaint, it's the offense. The only complaint you can have about the defense, again, if you look at their last 3 games, the 3 losses, I don't think they gave up 300 yards in any of those games. The problem with the Buffalo game, is they couldn't respond to the challenge where they were put on a short field. They gave up the long run to James Cook. Against Seattle, they gave up 17 points, 150 yards in the first quarter, and then that was basically it. They shut the door. But the offense scored 3 points, so they never had a shot. And then against the Titans on Monday night, you saw it again. They gave up like 250 yards. They gave up the one long run in the third quarter, but outside of that, not a whole lot. No, this is purely on the offense. And for anybody to point the finger anywhere else but the offense for the 1-3 record, I mean, you're asking this group to be like the '85 Bears or the 2000 Ravens or the 2002 Buccaneers, because you can't ask that much of a defense.
Well, I know that this team, may have surprised a few in the very early stages of Mike McDaniel's career. I think they started perfect the first 3 weeks of the last 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, and yet this team has kind of stumbled off to a 1-3 start, at least right now, and is having all kinds of trouble moving the football. Is it all Tua related, or is there a deeper systemic problem that's really kind of keeping the offense from breaking loose?
Yeah, no, there was a cloud over this offense dating back to late last season, because the issues didn't just suddenly appear when Tua was injured. In the opener against Jacksonville, they were able to hit 2 long plays, went to Tyreek, went to Jalen Waddle. Outside of that, it was a very pedestrian effort offensively. Against Buffalo, before Tua went out late in the third quarter, they weren't getting a whole lot done. Tua had thrown 3 picks, but this goes back, like I said, to last season when the Dolphins couldn't do a whole lot against Baltimore, Buffalo, and the Chiefs in their last 3 games. And even their last win of last year, they beat Dallas 22-20 at home, kicking 5 field goals. And the big question that's being asked around here is, have opposing defenses figured out how to stop this offense, which is basically play very loose coverage on defense to make sure that you don't get beat over the top, which Jacksonville forgot for a couple of plays, and make sure you secure the perimeter when the Dolphins try their jet sweep or run outside. And the Dolphins need to have to come up with an antidote first while Tua's on the sidelines, and also when he does come back, whenever that might be, because, again, the offense was not humming in the first game and 3 quarters, even with Tua at quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I mentioned 1-3. 9 teams right now in the NFL at 1-3. And I guess, and I think you even pointed this out in the latest post that you had, 24 teams since the league went to 17 games. 24 teams have started 1-3, and only 3 of them have made the postseason. What will it take for this Miami team to be a 4th team to make the playoffs?
Well, they have to figure out what's going on with the offense. I think the defense is fine, and the defense came into the season as maybe the bigger question mark because they had lost Christian Wilkins and David Howard in the secondary, because they had a new defensive coordinator in Anthony Weaver. But the defense, like I said, has been fine. It hasn't been great, but it's been fine. But the offense has gone from being number 1 in the NFL in total yards to being the lowest-scoring team in the NFL. So there's got to be a middle ground. You would think that they would figure things out. Again, once and if Tua does return, because then the offense, which was built completely around what Tua does best, which was the quick passing, timing, precision passing, for which the Dolphins don't have the backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But once the pieces are all back in place, certainly you would expect the offense to take a massive jump. How far of a jump it can be, that's going to determine whether they can make a run at the playoffs. And interesting, you make them they're 1-3. In my research, by the way, the Patriots, you should be familiar with 1-3 because that's the 4th straight year for them.
Yep. We are aware of that, very much so, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured you would be.
Yeah, we're kind of there with you on that one. Hey, Alan, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. If you're traveling up this way, be safe this weekend.
All right, thanks, guys.
You got it. That's Alan Poupart on our TPX hotline, by the way. You can get him on X at Poupart is how he spells his last name, Poupart NFL. That's where you can find him on X for the latest on the Miami Dolphins. And it's kind of clear to me that, there are a lot of similarities between these two teams, at least on the offensive side of the football. But yeah, Miami's still got a defense that's extraordinarily capable. Now, that's not to say that the Patriots don't. But Miami is putting that up with the numbers to back it up. So, for a team that we know, at least in New England's case, for a team that we know has to play nearly a perfect game in order to really be there. I mean, when I tell you that, hey, we talk about this even when the teams are good and they're getting ready for a slugfest with, Kansas City or with Buffalo or, with somebody who's a contender. Well, I always tell you it's always going to come down to turnovers and special teams play. Well, it's still that way anyway, even when you got two teams that are struggling. That philosophy doesn't change here. Football is still football. Basics still matter here. And you still have to block and tackle the other guy, and you still have to hold on to the ball. It's rare that teams can turn the ball over 2 or 3 times a game and win it. It's still rare. It can happen, especially if your defense is forcing the other team into 2 or 3 turnovers, where it basically evens things out. Okay, I'll buy that. But the one thing that I've noticed, even though they had a couple of turnovers this last week, this Patriots team needs to go after the football a little bit more on defense. We need to see more guys punch at the ball. I think the coverage, and Evan mentioned this a little bit earlier, but the coverage has been adequate. It's even been really outstanding at times. It's not ever going to be perfect because, corner and even safety, but corner especially, that's an extraordinarily difficult position to play. To me, playing cornerback in the NFL may be the single toughest position to play in all of professional sports, other than facing, 110-mile-an-hour pucks in the NHL coming at you if you're a goaltender. But you're having to do everything backpedaling or moving side to side or swiveling on your hips. And so for the Patriots to have, a chance to go up against some of these receivers, I think they're actually playing it pretty well. Where the Patriots defense is not comparable to what Miami is doing thus far has to do with in their contain and with setting the edge. You hear that term a lot. And again, Evan mentioned this earlier, but it bears repeating here. They're playing a little bit differently schematically than they were used to playing under the former regime, under Bill Belichick. They're asking the defensive ends especially to do some different things. So this coaching staff this is where we're at a crossroads, okay? The coaching staff has to decide, look, Do we still force feed these guys to get them to do what we want them to do, or do we move them around? Do we get them to play a different way, a way that they may be more comfortable in playing, a way that they may be more adept at playing in order to be able to get better production out of them right now? See, I think this adds into the whole, the last 3 weeks, the Patriots coaching staff has had their pants coached off of them. I mean, the absolute pants coached off of them. And again, realizing that there are going to be growing pains here, okay? We're going to be. You got a first-year head coach, and while, Alex Van Pelt and DeMarcus Covington are not rookie coaches, it's a rookie staff. And they're all trying to come together with what they think is best for the current skill set of the players that they have on the roster. And so what they've discovered now through, summer camp, preseason, and the first month of the season is that this team needs more talent. So I would tell you, look, do you keep muddling along and trying to reinforce what it is that you're trying to get them to do, or do you say, all right, scrap this, let's go back to some basics here, let's be a little bit more familiar with what you've done in the past, and let's try to win some ball games? Does this team really want to go 1-16? I actually think that we may know the answer to that question after this weekend. I think we might. I think it's possible. Depending on the effort that we see, depending on the way that we see, the Dolphins played, especially with the Patriots defense, look, if we see the same type of lackluster effort and lack of attention to detail and turnovers and without any repercussion coming from the coaching staff yet, I mean, Ramondre, love you, buddy, but, dude, grab some pine, okay? Until you can figure out a way to hold on to the ball. If we see that kind of an attitude, that tells me these guys are okay with going 1-16. I'm embarrassed by that. I'm embarrassed by that. I don't know about you. I'm embarrassed by that. This is a proud franchise over the last 23 years that has managed to win 6 Super Bowls. And we know it's been a struggle in the 4 years now since, TB12 left the docket. And then, of course, Bill Belichick, I would say, look, he's not blameless here because I think the overall depth of the roster has suffered because they've largely had some failures up high in the draft. Can't lie to anybody. It's pretty obvious. But I think he was able largely to buy time on his goodwill and what he's been able to do in the past. And I think we all realized this game is what have you done for me lately? Nobody should get by on their goodwill. If anybody should get by on their goodwill, you could certainly make an argument that Bill Belichick is that one guy. But over the last year or so, the move that the organization made to move on from him was the right move to make, as much as it pains me to say that. Would this team be any better right now if Bill were coaching it? I don't think so. Not sure. I mean, yeah, I am sure. I don't think they would be. I don't think they would be. Because there just isn't enough talent here. And so what you need is a complete and total rethinking of how to develop this roster out. Elliott Wolf is the man in charge of that, and he needs to deliver. He's the one that's look, I'm willing to go along with some growing pains from this coaching staff. Someone asked me this week, just offhanded, sent me an email. They said, hey, do you think that, after a year that, Alex Van Pelt should be gone? He should be fired now. What about at the end of the year if he's not fired by then? Should he? And the answer to that is no, I don't think so at all. I think that there's a full intent of having him being able to sort of be the quarterback whisperer for a guy like Drake Maye. And so the frustrating part about it is that when, Gerard Mayo says, Jacoby's still our number one, okay, great. But Evan alluded to this also a little bit earlier. It's like, you can't tell me he's the best quarterback on the roster because that's just a lie. It's just not. We're not being truthful. We can all see it. Even novices, even casual fans can see that this isn't the case. But if you're not playing him to protect him from this, shred of an offensive line, he's not learning. He's not improving. And please don't tell me, well, he's getting 30% of the reps against the ones in the practice. That's nothing. Do you realize that they mostly only practice in shells and shorts? I mean, they were in full pads today. That's rare. And the Players Association is the one that's fault for that. That's part of their rules now. There can only be so many padded practices in a year. He can't get better unless he's out there on the field in game speed, in game situations, recognizing what he is supposed to do. It can't happen. That's like asking an airline pilot to pilot a 747 and he's only got practicing in a Cessna. It ain't going to happen. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. He needs to play. I know the line is a shambles. I know he might be running for his life. But he's got the ability to step up in the pocket. Is he going to get hit? Yeah. Is he going to get sacked? Yeah. Still got to see it. Still got to play. It's the only way that he can recognize it. And so I'm seeing, Tom Brady. I saw James White even say this on a podcast earlier this week where they say, oh, there's no way that the Patriots should play him because, you could end up, he could end up developing bad habits. Okay. Developing bad habits is one thing, but this is where coaching comes into play. And I'm going to go right up against two guys who played it at a very high level and maybe the best quarterback that ever played. Nothing beats experience. Nothing beats experience. Put him in situations where he can excel. He's adept at getting rid of the football more quickly. He's adept at moving in and around the pocket. He can run with the ball. He can create things on his feet that Jacoby Brissett cannot. He might be able to make a play or two that could keep a drive alive, giving you a chance to score once or twice in a game. And damn it, that might be enough to win a game or two. I fully expect, not that I'm asking for it, but I fully expect if we see the same Drake that we've seen, and it was pitiful, it was putrid last week. If we see that, I think Gillette fans are going to let everybody know it this week. And this is completely and totally avoidable. Sticking to the plan, for whatever that plan may be, if that's what this team is doing, I'm going to make a strong argument here, and I think I've already made it. It ain't working. It's time to look at plan B, or at least plan 1A. Maybe that includes Drake. I just don't see how it could be any worse at this stage of the game. Karen Guregian has covered the Patriots for over 3 decades now, formerly at the Boston Herald, now at MassLive.com, and love having Karen on the show. And she joins us here inside the Playbook. Karen, how goes it today?
Hey, John, I'm doing better than most. Let's put it that way.
I know. Better than most people we have to know and work with on a day in and day out basis around here. I'm just kind of curious your take on all things Patriot land today, and I'm pretty sure I know where you stand on the whole Drake Maye thing, and I know that there's a lot of conjecture about that now, especially considering the plethora of injuries that this team is going through. How do you feel, Karen, about the quote-unquote plan and whether or not maybe there should be an adjustment or two in that at this stage?
Well, I get the plan. I do. But like you said, there are occasions where sometimes you have to scrub the plan and go to plan B.
Yeah.
I do think we'll see Drake Maye this year at some point, whether it's from Jacoby, not getting up one time, finally.
But is that even fair to Jacoby? I mean, my goodness, are we going to wait for him to get his block knocked off before Drake Maye gets in? That just seems ridiculous to me.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with some of the things that you said in the lead-in that, with that offensive line, no quarterback should be behind that line.
I wouldn't want to be.
Whether it's a veteran or a rookie. I mean, that offensive line is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I mean, there were plenty of reasons to go with Jacoby at the start. You know, his familiarity with the offense. You know, Alex Van Pelt trusts him. You know, they have an understanding. I think he thinks Jacoby can run the offense how he wants, but I also think because of having a bad offensive line, Jacoby's more equipped to handle it. And then I'm not just saying taking a pounding, understanding where the pressure is coming from, knowing perhaps where to go, judging by where the pressure is. I mean, it's his experience in knowing what he's seeing in front of him from the defense. And that kind of his experience is something Drake doesn't have. Does Drake need to get that experience? Yeah. I just think the Patriots would prefer not to have his head taken off in the process of doing that. They saw what happened to the previous young quarterback, Mac Jones, by getting hit too much. And I actually think you're seeing it now with Jacoby Brissett. I think it took 4 games, but I think he's seeing ghosts now. I think
he might be.
I think sometimes I think he sees pressure when there isn't pressure.
Yeah, I think he might be, because he's missing open receivers. As we go back and we look at it, which we have the ability to do, and I know the team does this as well when they film review. But I mean, within a couple of seconds, we can rewind it and look at it and say, "Oh my God, he's wide open. How did he not see him?" Because there are ghosts
he
working.
has other things in his head.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, and again, sometimes things that aren't there. But that's what happens when you're sacked a half dozen times every game and hit. He's been hit over 20 times the past 2 games. That has an impact, John.
Yeah, sure it does. It would have an impact on both of us.
You are.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said it would have an impact on both of them as well as both of us. If we're getting pounded 20 or 30 times over a couple of weeks, I got to tell you, I'm going to be a little gun shy.
Right, and they're trying to avoid having their rookie be gun shy right out of the gate.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It really does. Okay, nevertheless, if you wait too long, you don't have an opportunity for him to get the quality kind of development that he needs, and you're going to waste a manageable contract year. So, yeah, I mean, he's got to play this year at some point, but when does that start? And shouldn't it start now while you still have a chance to win a few games and make your season interesting?
All good points. And if we don't see if we don't see Drake till like January, it's a wasted season.
It is.
I totally agree. But, you know, they just lost David Andrews, too.
Yeah, I know.
Who?
What are we arguing here?
He's the brain center, right?
Know, yes.
And he's the guy who's the quarterback's best friend right now.
Yeah.
So, again, although it was encouraging to hear Gerard Mayo say today that one wouldn't have anything to do with the other in terms of Drake. Mm-hmm. He claimed that losing Andrews would not impact when Drake gets out on the field or not.
Well, see, now that tells me that they're doing everything they possibly can do to, quote-unquote, stick to the plan, whatever that is. And I wish we had a little more insight as to what the plan really means. I'm beginning to understand it, and I'm also beginning to think that they're in over their heads on this one, because we've seen this coaching staff a little over its head the last 3 weeks when it comes to matching wits with the other guys. And again, I don't even necessarily blame them, because I knew that a young coach and a young staff was likely going to take its lumps along with a team that didn't have as much talent as it should have, right? So we knew that there were going to be bumps in the road. But this plan is something they can control. And it almost to the point where I feel like they're being obstinate about it.
They're over-controlling.
Yes, 100%. That's the phrase I'm looking for. They're over-controlling. Guys, you're not looking at the real big picture here. The real big picture here is actually the next year, year and a half. If you expect this team and this franchise to be competitive within the division and possibly play into the postseason starting next year, like that's what we've been told anyway, he's got to play. And he needs to be able to see these same ghosts or whoever's out there that Jacoby's looking at right now. He needs to see that. He needs to recognize it, and he needs to play it one way or the other, and you stick with him through thick or thin because that's the only way you learn, with all due respect to the things that Tom Brady and James White and some others are saying.
John, but don't you know they have this simulating thing where it's like the quarterback, like he's taking actual snaps?
Karen, mule muffins. Okay, and I'm putting that nicely. Okay, that's anybody that says that a simulator or AI is anything close to the real thing, they have no idea what they're talking about.
I agree with you. I was being very facetious.
I know you.
I don't know if you caught that.
I did. 100%. But I'm just making sure, just in case somebody didn't catch it. Look, I think it's great that they have that capability because, sure, it's going to get him familiar with some things. But listen, you aren't learning unless somebody 6'5" and 280 pounds is breathing down your neck. That's how you learn.
Yeah, you experience is the be all and end all.
Yeah.
No question about that.
Right.
And I agree with you too. He offers much more than Jacoby.
No question.
And that's not to knock Jacoby, but this kid can make throws that Jacoby can't.
Yeah.
This kid doesn't know what he doesn't know. So he's going to try and put balls in windows that Jacoby doesn't, because Jacoby it's like it's ingrained into his head to play safe, no turnovers, play safe. Well, that went out the window.
Yeah, he's been told that. He's been told, no turnovers, we want to be conservative,
right.
Blah, blah, blah. He's been told that, so we can see, and we're painfully aware of it now, that's how Jacoby has been told to play.
Right. But I hope they wouldn't do that to Drake. He has to make mistakes. He has to see at this level how good his arm really is or isn't.
Yeah.
If he can put the ball in those tight windows.
Mm-hmm.
It took Josh Allen a year or two to figure out what his arm could or couldn't do. It took him that long to get on target. But look at him now.
Well, I'm just saying, though, that, if it took Josh Allen a couple of years, and that's the comparison we're using, why does it have to take Drake Maye that long?
Yeah, I don't know. You know what the word is, John? There's no urgency.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
That's what's
urgency.
But that's what's embarrassing, I think, to a lot of fans, Karen. I mean, you and I hear both sides of it, okay? And while the coaching staff and the team and maybe even the front office, maybe the owners, I don't know, maybe they're okay with sucking. But there are a lot of fans around here who are used to winning over the last 23 years. And nobody's okay with this. Nobody thinks, a team that, at once flirted with 17-0, and a decade and a half later, they could be 1-16 this year. And there doesn't seem to be any sense of urgency. That's not right.
Yeah.
Are the Patriots turning into, the John Henry Patriots?
Shudder the thought.
I probably shouldn't have brought that up, huh? It's kind of a sore spot with baseball fans.
36 million still in cap space.
I know. I know.
Some people are drawing that parallel.
Yeah, I know.
But he's like, well, why didn't you get this guy? Why don't you get that? Well, it takes two. It's like people are throwing Devonte Adams out there, and it's like, you think Devonte Adams wants to walk into this?
No. If I'm Devonte Adams, no.
Right?
I can understand why Brandon Ayuk said no. I understand all of that. I get it.
Right.
It's a shame, but I get it. And so my point is...
But the Patriots have to know...
Yes, thank you. They got to know that. They have to know that, and the only way to fix it is by winning.
Right. You can't rest on your laurels of 6 Super Bowls, the last one coming 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
It's what have you done? They should know. What have you done for me lately?
100%. What have you done for me lately? And this team is not doing squat, and hasn't done squat. And they need to start, squatting is what they need to do. They need to do something about that. They've got an opportunity, and I think you would appease everybody, and we'd learn a lot more about the intestinal fortitude of this team if they let the rookie have a crack at it here. All right, here you go, kid. Have at it. And, we know that he can throw the short passing game. We know that he can get it out quickly. We know he can make plays with his feet. Let's get in the end zone a couple of times, and maybe they don't average 13 points a game. Maybe they average 18 or 20 even. If they score 20 points, I think this team's got a chance to win 4 or 5 games.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't see all of practice anymore.
Yeah.
I don't.
They don't let anybody do that. Yeah.
You get to see the nothing parts of practice early on, whether it's stretching or warming up.
Right.
So it's hard to know exactly how Drake is doing in practice, except all the coaches rave about how he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, do these coaches, whether it's Gerard or anyone, know that by raving about Drake, they're further planting the seed that he should be playing?
No, I don't think they're aware of it, and that's unfortunately that's part of the difficulty here. One of the things that this locker room and this franchise learned so well under Bill Belichick is to ignore the noise and to not really speak outwardly to the media and stay off of social media, all that kind of stuff. And look, I would be, and I tend to agree with that, okay, because there's a lot of noise out there that a lot of guys probably shouldn't waste their time on. But at the same time, if you don't have a general sense of awareness of how you're being perceived, whether it's through fandom or whether it's through media or whether it's through other teams in the league, then you're losing a big part of the big picture. And I think it's clear this team isn't aware of how they're being perceived around the league. And if they're not aware of it now because they've had, some high-profile players say, nah, I don't think so, I'll pass, like Brandon Ayuk, for instance, and maybe even Devonte Adams, then you know what? Then that's a part of this process, and this is a part that they are failing right now.
Yeah, without question.
All right.
And to that end, I talked to a couple of the receivers today, most notably Pop Douglas.
Yep.
Who's kind of been called out for his little tantrums when he's open and doesn't get the pass.
Doesn't get the ball, yeah.
Right, and how that's not the best look. Well, he knows it now. I mean, he said he told me today he went back and he looked at the film from the 49ers game, and he was almost like taken aback by what he saw himself do. And he admitted that was wrong, and he needs to. But it's hard. He's reacting in the moment.
Sure he is. Yep.
It's frustration.
Yeah, he's a young guy too. He's not really. I wouldn't call him a veteran. He's a second-year player. He's learning, and he's having to learn really, on the firing line.
Yep.
Oh man. Well, all right. Let's try to end on somewhat of a more positive note here, Karen, because it's not all doom and gloom. There's nothing they can really do about the injuries. We know that football is an extraordinarily physical, violent sport, and so these are going to happen. Other than Joey Sly and maybe Bryce Behringer, all right, because we know that those two guys certainly look to be two of the best at their positions right now in the league based on their recent performances especially. What do you like about this team?
That's a loaded question. There's not a lot to like yet.
Yeah. But I knew you'd give me an honest answer. Okay, so.
Well, it's true. How do you like an offense that's only scoring 13 a game?
You can't.
If that.
Yeah, you can't.
You can't.
Yeah.
No receiver is stood out. And your best player on offense, Ramondre Stevenson, has fumbled every single game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's where are you going to hang your hat on that side of the ball? I think the defense has really been hurt by injuries.
Yep.
Then they're told what they need to do. You got to set an edge. You can't let the quarterback escape. And then in the very next game, on the very first series, Brock Purdy's running like wild.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
and he's got 4 seconds to throw. I mean, come on.
And he's right. So it's hard. I mean, I think Christian Gonzalez has done pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not yet going to call him a shutdown corner, but he's held his own in these really tough matchups against some of the game's great receivers.
And he's still developing,
but,
too. Yeah.
Right, he's still developing.
Yeah.
But again, defense was supposed to be their calling card. Well, they gave up 30 to San Fran.
Yeah. Well, they gave
right.
up 30 to San Francisco, right? But I mean, they had a pick six and a fumble, and a couple of fumbles that led to scores. I mean, by all rights and reason, that should have been about a 17-13 to 17-16 game on Sunday.
Right. Well, and I think the thing that's hurt the Patriots a lot, actually, is the fact that they did something nobody expected in the first game.
Yeah.
They beat Cincinnati.
They totally and completely screwed up the thought process on this team. Absolutely.
Right.
It's their own damn fault.
Now that the water is back to seeking the level it's supposed to be,
yeah,
it looks even worse.
Yeah. No kidding. Hey, love talking to you, Karen. Thanks for taking a little time today. I sure appreciate it.
Anytime, John.
All right, we'll see you on Sunday. That's Karen Guregian, at K Guregian, G-U-R-E-G-I-A-N on X. If you're not following her, I'm not sure why you're not. Patty in Agawam. Patty, I appreciate your hanging on through all of that. What say you, my friend?
What's going on, John?
Hey, you know what's going on, dude. You know what's going on.
Yeah, unfortunately. First off, I want to start by saying you are absolutely right about Drake Maye. I'm chomping. I don't know. You got to call up Escal and ask him how to say it. But I'm chomping at the bit for him to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna make a bold prediction, and I'm gonna lay out some things that I think might help his case.
Shoot.
First off, it's not necessarily a silver lining that David Andrews got hurt. But the fact is, he took most of his snaps in the preseason and in training camp and minicamp with Nick Leverett. So he has some rapport there. So, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily call that a silver lining, but it just kind of is what it is. He has experience with them, which is kind of a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
And Leverett, hopefully, if he stays out there at center, he doesn't have the snapping problems when they go to shotgun that he had. It looked like he cleaned that up a lot this past game, which is good too.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, this team does not play a true road game until November.
Right.
We have 3 games at home and 1 game overseas.
Yep.
And here's where the bold prediction comes in. I think if fans don't start showing up, I think there's going to be pressure from ownership saying, hey, listen, I know there's a plan. I know you guys have a plan in place, and it's probably well-intended, but you, as you like to say, John, you know what they say about good intentions. The road to hell is paved with them.
I thought that was the road to my house.
No, come on. The road to my house.
Yeah, right. No, I get you. I listen. I understand that, and frankly, we're not entirely certain that there isn't already pressure there, from upstairs.
Yeah.
So I'd be surprised if there wasn't something there already. But the only way that anything hits home is, stop buying tickets, stop buying swag, stop going to games. That's how the owners. That's how they get hit. That's how they pay attention. Is you hit them in the pocketbook. Now, I'm not advocating that because I don't think it's
neither.
I don't think it's as dire as that. But I would tell you that we've seen what meddlesome ownership can do. All you got to do is look at the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones, and there's a reason why they haven't even been to a Super Bowl in damn near 30 years. Okay, but that franchise is making money hand over fist. They're the most. They are valued the highest of any franchise on the planet. They're the first team on planet Earth that has a $10 billion valuation. Why? Because it's not all about winning. They want to win, sure, but Jerry wants to win his way. He's already won overall because the franchise is worth more money than anybody can shake a stick at. And so what does winning really mean, especially after you've won 6 Super Bowls? And I think it's fair to ask that question. So is it fair to say, well, we've won our Super Bowls and now let's try to, suck for a few years and build it where we can get back to another 6 Super Bowls? I would tell you that I don't think that's happening. As much as I hope it does as a fan, it's not happening, because what the Patriots caught with BB and TB12 is lightning in a bottle, and everybody knows it. One was not better than the other. They each needed the other in order to put this team on its backside and ride it to 6 Super Bowl trophies, okay? That is a fact. And so if they're hoping to catch lightning in a bottle and have that happen again by building this thing slowly, it ain't happening. It's not going to happen. And so what you need to do, I don't think you have to throw it all away and win now at all costs. You can certainly build to where you might be able to, get back into the playoffs in another year or be competitive for a Super Bowl in the next 2 to 3 years. I think you can get back to that stage. But there's so much parity, and with the salary cap now in the NFL, as things presently exist, everything is going to be much more cyclical. That the Patriots managed to stay at such a high level for 20-plus years is extraordinary. And I just don't see, and that includes Kansas City, I just don't see it happening again. I just don't. Kansas City still has another 10 years to go before they can even get close to being mentioned in the same breath as the Patriots. So I don't know. I don't see it happening. I think that you've got to decide what you really want. And to me, the only way that you can perpetuate winning is by starting somewhere, putting a stake in the ground, drawing the line in the sand, however you want to, mark it. But you got to start at some point and move forward from there. Maybe they feel like they're doing that now. Maybe that's part of the plan. I don't know. But I wish we had a little more clarification on that. So that way we could monitor it and see how it's going. And then I want leadership to step up and say, look, this ain't working. I'm not saying we're abandoning, but we need to try something different. It's kind of like, banging your head against a brick wall. After a while, it's going to bruise. After a while, it's going to bleed. And when it's bruised and bloody, are you still going to bang your head against the wall doing the same thing? No.
Well, in my case, John, there's nothing up there to damage, so I would probably keep banging my head against the wall.
Well, then in that case, if they keep banging their head against the wall, I would tell you that's the definition of insanity. Doing the same things over and over and over again and expecting a different outcome when you get the same outcome. And you keep doing it over and over and over again, expecting it to be different. No, it's not going to be any different because you haven't changed anything. You got to change it.
And I'm with you.
It's like in baseball. You're throwing fastball, and pretty soon Aaron Judge is going to clock it. Throw the man a changeup. Throw the man a curveball. That's how you're going to get him out.
Throw him a slider or throw him a spitball,
Throw him something, but not a fastball. And that's what the Patriots are doing. They're throwing all fastballs. They're not changing it up.
And I'll bring up a point that I made a couple times already.
Yep.
Teams know how to defend this team. You load the box and you dare them to throw. And it's not just looking at the stats. It's the eyeball test too.
Yeah.
You're not going to win games in this NFL, in today's NFL, throwing for. They average 113 or a little under 113 yards passing per game,
which is ridiculous.
It's not going to happen.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with the game. Everything in the game is cyclical. Defenses always catch up to offenses. So anybody that tells you that, the game is lousy today, it's bad football being played. No, it's the same football. It's the same athletes, and the athletes are much more athletic than they were 10 or 20 years ago. Defenses catch up.
Ebb and flow,
Yeah.
Like you. I like the ebbs and the flows of it. But I want to bring you back too, John. You remember because I've been watching this team forever, since 1985.
Mm-hmm.
But do you remember? I know you remember because you were still at the old crappy stadium in 1993.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember how bad that team was?
Oh, of course.
Do you remember before that season started, Bill Parcells says, anyone that does not want to be in here, get in my office, and I will get you the hell out of town.
Yes, and that's that's what they need to do again.
Had guys like, they had Vincent Brown, they had Maurice Hurst, they had Marv Cook, they had Ben Coates.
Yep.
And they had a young Drew Bledsoe. They had the young quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And you remember how that season played out. I mean, I think they got their first win with Scott Seakules.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last 4 games of the year, they ended up winning.
Now, that's a name I haven't heard in forever. Scott
right?
Seakules.
We had a glimmer of hope. And that's kind of all I want to see. Like,
yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm making a prediction. Because, like I said, there's no true road games until November.
Mm-hmm.
If fans stop buying tickets because they know Jacoby Brissett, and this is nothing personal against Brissett, but he's not a starting quarterback. But if they stop buying tickets and start showing up, you better believe both Krafts will start holding this coaching staff's feet to the fire and saying, guys, I like the idea of the plan. You're costing me money. Your plan is now costing me money.
I'll put it to you this way. The waiting list for season tickets is dwindling.
Maybe a good time to buy, eh?
Might be. Might be. You buy low and sell high, bro, right?
All right, let me give you my prediction.
Go.
Miami wins this game 10-9.
Okay. All right. Actually, I like that prediction. 10-9 sounds about right.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
And in good faith, I can't pick them to win if Jacoby's starting.
I know.
And like I said, that's nothing personal against him. It's just I just laid out how to beat the Patriots. Load up the box and dare them to pass. It's not going to happen.
That may also be the way that you beat the Dolphins this week, too.
True. I'll put it, and I'll say this. Whoever wins the turnover battle is more than likely going to win the game.
Because they'll have a short field. Yeah, I agree. All right, Patty, you the man.
All right, John, that's all I got, buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Let me squeeze Eldred in here. Hey, Eldred, how are you?
Hey, Mr. Legend, how you doing today?
Everything's okay. How are you? No travels today?
No, I got off a little early today.
Good for you.
Enjoying sunshine for one.
Good for you. Good for you.
But part of North Carolina is still kind of closed off a little
I was just going to say, were you affected by anything yourself?
No, we had a bunch of rain and a bunch of I didn't lose no power or nothing, but part of Charlotte did on the other side, and then Gastonia, which is like 20 miles down the road, and Marksville, which is up the road about 18 miles. They had a lot, and then
Well,
on and off.
I really feel for the people in Asheville. I came very close to
me too.
taking a job in Asheville. It's probably been about 30 years ago. But when I see the pictures, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know that. I think I know that area because I went and visited and looked at houses and did the whole thing. Job actually didn't pan out the way that I wanted it to, but I almost became an Asheville resident and years ago, and it's devastating to see the aftermath of some of that. So anything anybody can do to help those people out, I'm sure it's appreciated.
Yes, sir. I got family up there, so I'm calling and keeping in check with them, see how they doing,
Sure.
And they some of them keeping informed by Facebook and some,
Yeah, of
can't
course.
really call directly, but they doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I'm gonna say this. I don't care if anybody get mad at me or not, fan wise, because I'm a big Patriots fan to the heart too. Like I said, I take my butt kicking and trash talking to the T.
Mm-hmm.
But some of y'all, I understand everybody is on Jacoby. Some of that is on him. Majority is not on him. Majority is that ratcheted line that's been a problem for 5 years since Bill got rid of Tooney, Mason, and Karras.
Yep.
And his predecessor, I'm talking about the GM, not the coach, who picked talent, picked just like him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 5 years that we ain't got no talent to run with any team on the NFL.
Yep.
Yep. And then if you get hit many times as that guy get hit, believe me, you see a little ghost too. And I'm surprised he keeps getting up. I want them to put May in. I want him to. I want everybody to see. Okay, if he had the same outcome or worse.
Yep.
Because when he got in against the Jets, he almost threw an interception. And when he took off running, he didn't take off full speed, and he got, like I said before, the wood laid to him that time. So I'm pretty sure he learned from that. But maybe, and I understand he's doing good with the scout team, but like you said, they got shelled. He need to get hit.
Yeah.
He need to know what's this and that. But, like I said, put him in and just go for it. Just go for it. And then we'll see. We'll see.
I'm 100% with you on that one.
But my thing with the fans, if he do like Bissett or worse, I don't want to hear that crap. I want to hear the same thing that you give Jacoby, same thing you give him.
Yep.
It's only fair.
Yep.
It's only fair.
Sure.
Rookie or not, because you gave Matt Jones the same, and I did too. I ain't gonna lie about it.
Yeah, and I would also argue that Mac's development or lack thereof is a little different than what the Patriots seem to be trying to do with Drake, and it's because they made a fundamental change in coaches. I mean, the man had 3 different coordinators in 3 years, and the second one had no business coaching offense, and so that was just.
Oh no, John. I ain't gonna let you get away with that one. I told you that in the beginning. You said no, Elder. If a coach can coach, you coach.
Wait a second. I'm getting ready to call myself out on that because Bill said good coaches know how to coach football regardless, and clearly that was wrong. I believe that.
Wrong.
I believe that. But what they didn't do is they didn't adjust to how the quarterback could play and what he was capable of playing. They didn't school him enough. They didn't teach him enough. They expected more, and they didn't know how to instruct him properly.
Correct.
And so that was where the fault lied in having the hubris that, well, hey, football coaches should be able to coach any position. Well, yes, but in this day and age of 5 wides and spread offenses and getting the ball up and down the field and all that kind of stuff, no, they didn't have that kind of experience. They did not.
Nope.
And here's the funny part. The ironic part about it is now that the game is coming back to center. We're seeing defenses catch up now because defenses are so much lighter and quicker. They're able to stay up with the receiver. And when you're playing that, too high safety defense, the shell defense that everybody talks about, that Mel Kiper Jr. says ought to be outlawed, I think that's a bunch of bunk, and I love Mel. But no, listen. It's now up to the offenses to figure out a way to beat that. And guess what? History tells us that will happen. It will happen
eventually.
Yes, it will. It won't happen right away. Probably won't happen this year.
No.
But defenses are catching up. Guess what? The offenses are going to take another step forward. You need to have a quarterback that is ready to play in that environment.
Yes, sir. Much so. And my thing is with Elliott Wolf is, okay, you traded Judon to the Falcons. Okay. I think we got a 4th for him.
Yeah.
4th because of his age or whatever. And he's showing out over there for the Falcons. I think he was 2nd or 3rd in sacks or something like that, in pressure.
Yeah.
Something like that, I think. Okay. Mr. GM, you couldn't trade him for somebody for a left tackle that's maybe not the first string, but somebody that's capable in the back because you ain't capable enough to draft a left tackle or recognize that you need one.
Yeah.
Or that you need line play.
Yeah, we can nitpick that one all day, and you wouldn't be wrong.
I was nitpicking that from Jump Street.
Yeah.
I was saying that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have traded. At least we got a 2nd, not a 4th.
Yeah. Well, but I don't think you were going to get that, and you needed to get rid of the guy because he was starting to become a distraction. So that's why that
but
happened.
I'll try a 2nd or 3rd. But exactly, he said a 4th if you got a 4th. But like they always say, I hope next year draft will get better. But I'm like I said, told you last week, I'm seeing the same thing from when Bill. You draft the same type of guy.
Yep. Well,
you ain't getting no playmakers. You draft the same type of guy.
They got a shot to improve, and they're going to get a shot to improve because they're going to get these draft picks that everybody wants them to get. But there's no more messing around. You've got to come up with the real deal. If you don't, then they should clean the house again and bring somebody in that can do it. I agree with that. That's the one thing that you can't hesitate. I mean, when Mr. Krabs said, "Hey, Gerard Mayo was the guy that I had identified as our future coach like 5 years ago," okay, fine. But now that he's got the job, you have to, as the leader, as the ultimate leader here, you have to be able to say, "This ain't working." Now, I'm not saying it's not working for Gerard. I'm willing to give him 2-3 years maybe, just because I think he needs to have pieces in place and a couple of drafts to work with. But the clock is already ticking, as far as I'm concerned, by how they handle this bit of adversity. I want to see leadership. I want to see forethought. I want to see aggressiveness. I want to see the effort to try to win football games and not be satisfied with a 1-16 mentality, because that's what I see right now, a 1-16 mentality.
I see that too. Matter of fact, I get teased by that every other day, especially from them Cowboy fans.
I know.
gave
Well, but
the crap.
all you got to do is just say, and you haven't been to a bowl since '95. Okay, shut up.
I keep saying that.
Yeah.
I keep saying it. But you know they tell me, John? They say, okay, y'all won y'all in this decade, but after a while, you can be saying the same thing that we saying.
Well, then let's wait until after a while. Yeah, so the Patriots go 30 years without winning a Super Bowl. Okay, then they can talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true, too. But most of all, one thing I am down on Jacoby about is a couple of those things. But then again, I see people flying at him, through him. There was a couple of receivers, including Pop, when he threw the interception.
Yeah.
But he had both of them bearing down on him, But if he could have held just a half second and threw it to the right of Fred Warner,
yeah,
Pop was wide open right there.
Yeah.
But that's easy for us to say we're watching it. But
Gotta
I ain't
find
got
him.
nobody that's running down there, running down my throat and ready to hit me.
Gotta find him.
Gotta find him.
Gotta find
but
him.
Then, like I said, Mr. Legend, good talking to you. But
thanks, buddy.
Elliot Wolf, you need to get up on your job, bro.
Yes,
you
he
need
does.
to get up on it.
I agree with you.
And
Everybody.
You have a good one.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate it. Stay safe out there.
A real woman could stop you from drinking.
You have to be a real big woman.
It's time to go around the NFL with football guru Russell Baxter.
From now on, your name is Flounder.
On Patriots Playbook.
Flounder.
Mr. Baxter, thanks for hanging in there with some Patriot fans passionate enough to, figure out what the hell's going on around here, because I'm not sure anybody really does know what's going on.
Well, that's true, but I will say this. There's passionate and then there's accurate. So,
wait, those aren't mutually exclusive?
Right. Eldridge, the Patriots got a third-round pick.
Third round. Yeah. Third round.
Okay, and, with all due respect, I don't think 1.5 sacks is leading amongst the leaders in the NFL. That's what Matthew Judon has.
Has 1.5?
By the way, Keon White has 4.
Yeah.
Dietrich White has 2.
Yeah.
So my final point is, this is for you, is hubris related to Hugh Downs?
Might have been at one time.
Or even Hugh Culverhouse.
Hugh Culverhouse. Oh, that's a good
Hugh
one, too.
McElhaney.
Hugh McElhaney? Yeah.
Hubris is like referring to anonymous. So.
God. Oh, man. See, the bad part about this, Russell, is that we're probably the only two that recognize these jokes, plays on words. So, but hey.
Oh, well.
Hey, as long as we're enjoying it, who the hell cares?
You know what? You're quoting someone I know and love very much. We get it. If you do, good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Come along for the ride. So what? I mean, you've seen the stuff. You've kept up with the news. You know what's kind of going on. This game on Sunday between the Patriots and the Dolphins is not exactly turning out the way that anybody thought it was. And certainly, if you look at it from the Miami perspective, it's just as bad, if not worse, because they're shocked. They're shell-shocked. They didn't think they were going to be 1-3 at this stage of the game, whereas the Patriots, 1-3, that's probably about where we thought they might be before the season started. But our expectations grew exponentially when you go in and you wrap Cincinnati in the mouth on the road in the opening week. It blew up the expectations to the point where now we've settled back into reality, and with the injuries that have happened, David Andrews it looks like he's gone for the rest of the year. You can't hold on the ball. You still don't have receivers that can really separate. You got a quarterback that's not really. He's missing open receivers. You've got a prized rookie who's sitting on the bench because they're afraid or ostensibly to play him behind a makeshift offensive line. I mean, there's a lot of different storylines going on here. But I love the phrase here, no matter how bad you've got it, somebody else always has it worse than you do. And I might put Miami in that category right now.
Oh, I don't know if I might. I think I definitely would after what's happened with them. And I will say this, John. I think not only the win at Cincinnati in week 1, but the very game effort, I know it wasn't flawless, the overtime loss to Seattle in week 2, I think that also hyped expectations because they did move the football.
They did.
And as we are finding out, Geno Smith and that passing attack is putting up big numbers against just about anybody. I know they lost.
Yeah, I think Seattle's better than advertised, or better than we thought, yeah.
But now the thud comes. Okay, the thud comes, what is it, the last 2 weeks? 54-16, 24-3, 30-13?
Yeah.
And so 1-3, you're exactly right. 1-3 based off the start is disappointing. 1-3, if you're one of those goofballs that goes through the schedule in May and forecast every win and every loss, which I find astounding because people can't pick week to week, but they can do it 6 months in advance. Is fascinating. But you said you could have it worse. Let me just throw out a few figures, and you'll probably see them in some of my pieces.
Sure.
At this time last year, the Miami Dolphins had played 4 games. Now, I know there's a bit of an outlier in here because of what they did to Denver.
Yeah.
They had scored 150 points. They had scored 20 offensive touchdowns.
Wow.
In 4 games this year, and by the way, ironically, they've used 4 different quarterbacks because Tim Boyle didn't start. And Huntley is going to start this week. But then there's Skylar Thompson and obviously Tua. The Dolphins are dead last in the league with 45 points. Their offense has scored 4 touchdowns. There are 13 players in the league after 4 weeks that have scored 13 players have scored at least 4 offensive touchdowns.
Yeah.
They look lost. Mike McDaniel, to a degree, looks overwhelmed. They look absolutely lifeless, which means this week is probably going to be like 38-35.
Well, I was just saying, I think we're cruising that way. I know everybody thinks we're destined for a 10-9 game, and we might be, but I don't know.
Listen, I think there's going to be there might be postseason baseball games that outscore the Patriots and the Dolphins on Sunday.
Yeah, I think that's legit.
It's not only in the case of Miami, they're just not moving the football. And on third down, it's been, I go back to when they lost to the Bills, and this was even before Tua went down in the third quarter, John. They're down big in the first half, 24-7, and they put on a clinic of how not to be urgent in the final 2 minutes of the half. I don't know if you remember that.
Okay.
They wound up settling for a field goal, but timeouts, and I think they were saving their timeouts maybe for this week. Okay, it was dreadful to watch, and they almost looked defeated because I don't think they expected Buffalo to come out the way they came out. And Buffalo struggled the week before against Arizona. Their defense didn't look all that good. The conservatism by Mike McDaniel has been bewildering. It's like they're not even over the last 4 games. They have 4 offensive plays of 20 or more yards combined. I mean that was different in week 1. And again, I understand the starting quarterback's not there, but the starting quarterback was there for two and a half quarters in week 2. And again, it's almost like that. They got Buffalo in their own building, which they, not like they've beaten them a lot of places anywhere. Okay?
Sure.
They're coming off the comeback victory over Jacksonville. And they literally they laid an egg against a team that was in just as much salary cap trouble as they were this offseason. The Bills made wholesale changes all over the place. Okay? Now, that being said, we saw what happened this past week. And I think the thing, if you're Miami, that's even more disturbing is you're sitting there on Monday night at home against a winless football team. Everybody else in the division had already lost. And you laid a clunker. And again, I know it's new starting quarterback and all that, but let me just throw out something.
Sure.
I'm proposing that the Tennessee Titans move to Miami in the next couple of years because it seems like that's the only place. John, the Titans are 2-11 in their last 13 road games, and both of those wins have come against the Dolphins in South Florida.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Tennessee is 7-21 in its last 28 games. The only team they've beaten twice are the Dolphins, and we know what kind of state the Tennessee's in right now. They're struggling as well. So, and Miami's we know this. Miami's had New England's number as well, but I don't know what kind of number that team has right now. And I expect Tyler Huntley to be better in a second straight start, but I'm not sure what to expect from New England. I think New England's physicality is going to be a problem for Miami because I haven't seen a lot of physical football out of the Dolphins the last 3 weeks.
Okay.
I'm trying to hype this thing up.
Listen. I think you're doing a marvelous job. That's why I'm letting you go.
Yeah,
but that's kind of where we are. You know,
it's like it's a rivalry game,
divisional game, all of that stuff, and the Patriots are even a 1-point favorite, which stuns me to no end.
Right. Well, and 1-point favor at home.
Yeah.
Which means it's like really kind of on the fence.
Yeah, of course it is.
I think Miami's still getting the benefit of the doubt because I think they've won 3 of their last 5 games in Foxborough, going back to 2019.
That is correct.
But what you have seen on the field from them, I mean, I think they had a stretch this year already of 10 straight quarters without a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You see Tyreek Hill getting frustrated. And, Mike McDaniel, I don't do the body language thing, okay? I'm just going by what I hear from him when he talks and the quotes and stuff like that. He seemingly is at a loss of what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, teams lose their starting quarterbacks all the time, okay? But it's almost as he's trying to, for lack of a better word, hold down the fort until Tua is able to play again, and we know he's not able to play 2 more games because he's on IR. He's missed 2 starts. He has to miss 2 more.
Okay.
They are off in week 6. Okay, so we don't see him again until I think it's week 8 when he can make his first start, and hopefully that makes a difference. I mean, other than some big numbers by Jalen Waddle in the Jacksonville game and that 80-yard touchdown throw to Tyreek Hill in the first game, we haven't seen a lot of what we saw from the Dolphins early last year. And, this might surprise some people, but at one point last year, Miami was 9-3. If you include the playoffs last season where they were frozen in Kansas City, this team is 3-7 in its last 10 contests.
Yeah, well, I mean,
a lot of numbers and none of them good.
I'm just about to say, I'm not sure what is really copacetic on that one. Before I forget here, let's take a look at a couple of other games this week, only because there is some meaningful football to be played. Not that this game wouldn't be meaningful, of course. I wanted to start, though, with the divisional team, the Jets, playing at the 4-0 Minnesota Vikings. Vikings may be the surprise, pleasantly so, of anybody in the NFL to this point in time. And I thought, the Jets stumbled mightily last week when I think we thought we expect a little bit more out of them, especially after the way they thumped the Patriots. So, are the Jets still back on the clock in terms of, or have they jumped back on the clock in terms of patience, not only for Aaron Rodgers but also Robert Saleh?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, that was, and there seems to be a little disconnect between Saleh and Rodgers here. And, the Jets have been in the news for a lot of the day today because of the availability now of Devonte Adams, who wants to be dealt. And, I saw some Antonio Pierce sound, and he's not, he wants no part of this talk about Devonte Adams and so on and moving on and so on. And it would make sense, obviously, to reunite Devonte Adams and Aaron Rodgers. Of course, it would also make sense to reunite Devonte Adams and Derek Carr.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons he wound up with the Vegas, and he also played with Derek Carr in school. But, yes, I mean, after a promising effort against New England and having more than a week and a half to prepare for a home game. And I know it was drizzly and rainy and all that stuff, but I think they held Denver to under 200 yards. And, Zerline misses the field goal. They had, I think, 13 penalties. They really looked completely disheveled. And meanwhile, Minnesota, you can make a case that Minnesota is the best team in the league right now because they're doing it on both sides of the ball. They had a big lead at Green Bay. They held on. They've done an excellent job of creating turnovers on defense. Sam Darnold, one time the third overall pick in the 2018 draft by the New York Jets. I don't know if I suggested this to you. I might have suggested someone else. I think the Jets should open up a quarterback school and draft somebody and then give them to another team 6 or 7 years down the road. Obviously Sam Darnold's on his, fourth different team, and he's thriving. You will recall that more than a decade ago, I believe, they also drafted Geno Smith.
Sure.
And he's thriving with the Seahawks. So, the way this is going, I would imagine in the next 5 or 6 years, Zach Wilson will be the MVP of the league.
Mm-hmm. Wait a second. Zach Wilson, the MVP of the league, the way that is going? What are you smoking today?
Can I get some?
Listen, they made him the second overall pick a couple of years ago. All he needs is forget smoking. How about fermenting?
Marine just said, "Can I get some of what he's having?"
Yeah, you probably could. Just call 867-5309.
I love it. I absolutely love it. All right, so while the Jets have a chance to make some serious amends at the Vikings, I'm not sure whether they do or not. The Vikings are a favorite in that game, and frankly, at 2.5, I'm a little surprised more people haven't jumped on that. I guess the only other one, the Bills, after stumbling last week, they got to go on the road at the 3-1 Texans. I think that's a matchup that would certainly be worth watching, and we might be able to tell a little bit about both teams. The Steelers are at home after stumbling. They get the Cowboys, who are reeling, and then they're not reeling, and then they're reeling again. And then I think the Monday night game is interesting because the Saints surprised early, stumbled of late, but they go on the road and they play at the Chiefs, and Kansas City continues to get itself into injury situations and all kinds of stuff, but the Chiefs continue to chief and just win games.
Well, Kansas City, if you include the playoffs, has now won 10 straight games.
Okay.
Okay.
Which is nuts.
9 of them by single digits.
Yeah.
Okay. The only game they've won in the last, over that stretch, is when they blew out Miami in the playoffs.
Yep.
Everything else has been nip and tuck.
Yep.
And, all 4 games this year and so on. But, that's the difference between them and other teams in the league. They find ways to win. I don't think their defense is still getting enough credit for what they've done. It's not like Patrick Mahomes is putting up amazing numbers. I think some people forget that last year, Kansas City was minus 11 in turnover differential. They turned over the ball 28 times during the regular season. This year, they're in the negative category again and already turned over the ball 7 times in 4 games. But Steve Spagnuolo's defense is fast, it's quick, it's aggressive. It has one of the best defensive linemen in the league, Chris Jones. And it's funny, the Saints blew out 2 teams to start the season, and now they've lost 2 games by 3 points and 2 points. So that plays right into Kansas City's hands. And, when we talk about familiarity, I'm safe to say Derek Carr probably knows something about the Kansas City defense. This will be interesting, especially if Alvin Kamara can get on track running the football on Monday night. And we have seen that Kansas City over the last year and a half, I know they're 4-0 this year, but they're not world beaters at home like they used to be a couple of years. Remember, they lost to the Lions last year. They lost to the Raiders on Christmas at home. So we'll see. This should be very interesting. The Chiefs can find ways to win games. They can also find a way to lose a game. And I think the Saints are very perplexing trying to figure out. We would have never figured they scored 91 points in their first 2 games. And then on the other hand, find a way they really let the Eagles and the Falcons slip away in the fourth quarter the last 2 weeks.
Correct. They did. They definitely did that. Russell, thank you for always catching us up. I appreciate it. It's a little different.
Can I throw one thing out?
Please do. Yeah, please do.
You know me. I like my history.
Yep.
Derrick Henry is on the verge of hitting 10,000 yards rushing. He needs 18 yards against the Bengals. Given the way Cincinnati plays defense, he'll get that during the national anthem. Okay? The bigger thing is Derrick Henry has now scored 99 touchdowns in his career overall.
No kidding.
And he can become the 26th player in NFL history to get to a C note. Now, by the way, he might be the 27th player because on Thursday night, tomorrow night, John, Mike Evans has 98 career touchdowns. He gets to a C note. So, for a long time, and most of these guys, just so you know, most of these guys who have 100 career touchdowns are all in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So just something to keep an eye on with the Ravens and the Buccaneers this week.
All right. Russell, I'll be keeping an eye on him myself. Thank you. While I try to keep one eye on the Patriots and the Dolphins.
Right. Just remember, 3rd-round pick and 1.5 sacks.
Yes, sir. Correct.
Write that down, Eldridge.
I'm sure he's writing it down now as we speak.
Well, I hope he's not driving.
No. He's off the road today. Thank goodness. Thank you, Russell. Talk to you next week.
Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. You got it. The one and only Russell Baxter at Bax Football Guru on X. This week, the Pats face off against the Dolphins, as you know, and you can catch all the action right from your living room when you dare to compare with Bob's Discount Furniture. Get ready for an epic game day watch party by snagging a high-quality sectional without the high price tag when you shop Bob's selection of storage-filled pop-up sleepers, power reclining sectionals, and viral modular styles, all for way less than the competition. So stop in and see how much you can save when you dare to compare with Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. And since football season is here, Sullivan Tire and Auto Service kicks things off in a big way with the exclusive Go Pats Tire Sale. Now through October 31st, score big with incredible savings on Bridgestone tires. Save $100 instantly with the purchase of 4 eligible Bridgestone tires. Bridgestone, the official tire of the New England Patriots. See sullivantire.com for complete details. Go Patriots. And as always, Bud Light is easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light is the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. Our thanks to Russell Baxter, to Karen Garegian of MassLive.com, also to Alan, how does he pronounce his last name again?
Poupar.
Oh, that's right, Poupar. It looks like Palpart, but it's Poupar. Alan Poupar from SI.com covering the Miami Dolphins. And, of course, the one and only Evan Lazar for coming in and trying to make some sense of this mess today. Yeah, it's a little messy. We talked about that at the opening of the show today. But the Patriots need to figure out a way to work it out. They've got another step. And, look, I would tell you that winning kind of cures most evils. Not all of them. Because there are some things here that we've seen in the last couple of weeks that can't be cured overnight with a win. But a win would certainly make things a little more palpable. Let's see what happens on Sunday, right here at Gillette, 1 o'clock Eastern Time kickoff. We'll be back same Pats time, same Pats channel next Wednesday, right here in the Playbook.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.